Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, and today is gonna be a video about the car, the Toyota Mirai, the second gen, the things I love, the things I hate, and everything in between pretty much. So I know a lot of my videos have been about the infrastructure, primarily because it's easy. I have to fill up anyway, might as well document the process. I really wish those videos were not as entertaining because that means that everything works fine and there's no need to really document my events at the pump. But if everything was working fine, it'd be pretty boring. But it seems like I get really lucky, or we all get lucky, to have hydrogen cars, and they're quite eventful. But anyway, we are back at the car. This is a second generation Toyota Mirai. The one I have is a 2022 Mirai XLE. It is not the limited. Those of you that have questions or left some comments about the fuel, the fuel app in the infotainment on where you can locate a hydrogen station, I have the XLE. It's not just the limited, so it is available there. But anyway, let's start with the exterior of the car. Things I love: subjective, but the styling. I think the car looks great. It has a great road presence. It is based on the Lexus LS chassis. The LS is kind of the flagship 7 Series of the Lexus lineup. It is slightly shortened from the Lexus LS chassis from my understanding, but the overall road presence is quite good in my opinion. The lines are absolutely gorgeous. For our model, we have the blackout wheels. These were a dealer installed or dealer modified option. So we love that look, and the badging also. So all of the badging is blacked out, which we like. So we have that. On the rear of the car, XLE Mirai, that's all blacked out. Outside of that, yeah, I mean, design. Number one, design. Second thing we love is mainly comes from the interior, is the overall look and aesthetic of the interior. So here's an overview of the interior. Just a beautiful design. I know this is kind of Lexus-esque, but just really adopts a lot of the new Toyota design language. I'm not a huge fan of this gloss black plastic in these high touch areas, but I say the car is definitely dirtier than it usually is, but I would say we generally keep it pretty clean. So overall pretty good there. Onto a thing that one of the top things I really don't like about this car is the floor mat. And I know that sounds very trivial, but the passenger side floor mat specifically, the rear as well, but the passenger side gets a lot of activity going in and out, and it always gets crumpled. It gets pushed up. As you can see here, this is honestly not bad. Usually it's all pushed up in there, but you always have to readjust this no matter how careful you are. One, either the driver's side has a little fastener here. I wish they put that in here, but even if that's not the case, the spikes should do a decent job, but it just slides all over the place. So that's one small thing that I don't like about the car. Another small thing to observe is once you're in the passenger seat in the front, if you are taller, I am 6'2", this little bulge right here can get pretty annoying. So if you put my feet up, you're kind of hitting this hard plastic area, which is not great, but just a small thing, nothing major. I would say the floor mat is definitely bigger issue. The next big thing, I would say the biggest thing that there's two big things that I really don't like, is that you're not able to drop the rear seats. And that's really key because this trunk is really not that spacious. I know there's a lot of stuff in here, but I would say if you're fitting like a check-in luggage, you can only fit one, unless you have two really small ones. You can only fit one, and they usually fit the others in the back seat. But the trunk, for the size of the vehicle, is really small. I don't know the exact space or the space available in here. The opening's not bad, but the overall size, I would say it's less than like a Honda Civic even a Corolla, I would say. I think those have more room. So that's definitely something that I definitely don't like. So one, the mat, two, the trunk space is not great, and then you can't fold down the rear seats. And speaking of rear seats, yes, overall design and comfort, they're great. However, again, apologize for the messy car, but the seats are pretty tight. Granted, the passenger side seat is back quite a ways, but I am 6'2", and my knees are hitting, and I don't have much wiggle room in my feet. My headroom's okay, but it is really tight back here for this size of vehicle. I would say this is equivalent to like a Toyota Corolla. Corolla might even have better rear seat room than this. And then onto the third thing, or the fourth thing, I guess, is this big hump right here. This is needed because I believe one of the hydrogen tanks follows along this, what would be a transmission tunnel for most cars. And it is quite large, and it makes the center seat almost unusable. This is quite a large hump, and it impedes on the third passenger quite a bit. For short distances, it is fine, but I would definitely not recommend any long trips with this. One thing I like, not anything major, but this little kind of curvature of the ceiling here is nice. But again, you can get a better look at the interior. Beautifully designed. I think just the main takeaway is the design is just beautiful in this car. So a definite pro are the screens. So I'm going to turn the car on. You'll see you get a nice gauge cluster here, and then obviously the infotainment, which is, I would say, the highlight. I love how it kind of integrates the design. Very small. This is very particular and not a huge deal, but I do not like that you can kind of see the bezel of the screen, and I see that they kind of try to integrate that with that little connection there, but it looks, for this price of vehicle, which starts at $53,000, I'm not too impressed with that. I've always had a problem with Toyotas and their bright green ready color. Again, I am nitpicking quite a bit in that sense, but something that I notice. Infotainment is great, very responsive. I like these quick change buttons, which makes it really easy. It has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is great. Big con, I would say, are the plus and minus volume buttons. It gets pretty annoying when you need to lower or increase the volume and just pressing the button rapidly. I wish having a knob would be easier. I think on the newer Toyotas that had this in the past, they incorporated a knob somewhere. So I think they heard the feedback loud and clear. I usually use systems here. From the cockpit standpoint, not too much. It's a very comfortable driving position. I would say a small thing that I don't like is the sunglass holder. The padding here is really thin. So just say for these Ray-Bans here, when they're up here and you're going through a bumpy area, or even in a parking lot, you can hear the rattling through the box there. Cool part that I really enjoy are these, like, I guess, touch lights. I know it can leave marks, but I find these very, very convenient. They are LED, which is nice. And yeah, everything else beautifully made. I'm not a huge fan of the vegan leather, but I feel like most cars have these now, and they feel pretty good overall. But just a gorgeous interior. I think the biggest thing is for the size. The biggest takeaway is for the size of the vehicle, there's not much room. Essentially, you're getting Lexus LS size for the body and styling, beautiful. And then for about Toyota Corolla of practicality, maybe less. So you're definitely going for partially looks when you get this car. But sound system, I think, is pretty good. And overall, I think the last thing I want to touch on is the drivability, or kind of how you feel when you drive. I know it's very subjective, but the car itself, I forgot the horsepower numbers, but essentially it's not a lot. Let me look it up real quick and get back to you. It's 182 horsepower, and it does sure feel like it. And this vehicle is very heavy and large. So with that all being into effect, it's not a quick car by any means, nor do you buy this car to be quick. But for day-to-day driving, I think it's adequate. I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I wish I had more power, or I was put in a dangerous situation where I wish I had more power to get out of it. I feel like with the hydrogen prices the way they are, and to kind of like hypermile, usually I'm not in positions where I'm not as active when I'm driving, or more aggressive. I'm much more passive. So usually that means letting people go, driving on the right-hand side of the highway and whatnot. So I usually don't feel the need for more power. It would be nice, but given the power plant, you get power instantly. You get those the electric motors, or the motors kind of giving you power delivery pretty quick, so it doesn't feel too slow. Overall feel, the steering is very light, which I love for a car like this. It's very comfortable. It's very plush. With that being said, if you push the car a little harder, it tends to understeer quite a bit, because it's a lot of weight and it transfers really heavy, and the tires are just not, there's just not enough tire to push through a corner, or pull yourself, or turn yourself through a corner. So with that being said, oh, one thing I forgot. If you plan to keep this car for a long period of time, I would suggest that you PPF the front for sure. These flat faces right below the turn signal are just bound to get chipped from rocks, debris on the road. I think the first week we had the car, we got this little nick here, really hard to see. But it's just a flat surface, and it's just bound to get scratched up. So I'll definitely PPF it if you plan on keeping the car for a long period of time. So that's a little review on things I love, that bother me about the car. Overall, pretty happy with it, only when it comes to taking other people, and especially taking luggage or any sort of equipment. It kind of gets a pain in the butt. But other than that, that is a quick review of what I love and what I hate about the Toyota Mirai Gen 2.